Most people believe scams are something distant, happening only online or over the phone, but the truth is far more unsettling. According to the Federal Trade Commission's 2023 Consumer Sentinel Network report, criminals stole over $9 billion from Americans last year, and increasingly, they're striking in the very places we feel safest, not behind a keyboard, not in some faraway call center, right here in broad daylight, while you're pushing a cart of groceries to your car. That moment you think you're safe, arms full of bags, keys jingling in your hand, is exactly when many seniors are being targeted. The danger isn't hiding in the shadows, it's walking straight up to you, wearing a smile, ready to turn your everyday shopping trip into a trap. But here's what should steady your nerves. Scams only succeed when they're unseen. Once you know the signs, they lose their power. Awareness is armor, and it's protection you can put on today. And that's why this conversation can't wait. These scams are unfolding in grocery store parking lots right now. By the time the next trip to Walmart rolls around, the same tricks we're exposing here could be waiting for you or someone you love. Stay with us, because in this episode we're showing you exactly how to stop them before they ever get close. I'm Nancy Miller, and today we're exploring the real risks that can follow you out of the checkout line. For seniors, these scams don't just cost money, they can chip away at independence, shake confidence, and leave a lasting sense of violation. And that's why this conversation matters. Sitting across from me today is someone who's been protecting people from cons and fraud for decades. Retired Detective John Harris spent over 40 years in law enforcement, tracking the very schemes that are now hitting seniors at places like Walmart and neighborhood grocery stores. Even in retirement, he continues teaching communities how to spot the signs before it's too late. And there's no one better to guide us through it than him.
Thank you, Nancy. It's always good to be here with you. But let me start by asking you and our listeners a question. If someone walks up to you in a grocery store parking lot and sounds friendly, maybe even helpful, how do you know whether it's kindness or the opening move of a scam?
And that's why we're going to slow down and unpack exactly how these scams work. I know from talking with our listeners that many of them pride themselves on being cautious. But as you've said before, John, caution only works when you know what you're looking for.
That's right. These scams are built on distraction and trust. They're not complicated, but they are clever. The scammer counts on your good nature, your desire to help, or your politeness. Once you know the signs, though, you can shut them down quickly.
And friends, that's exactly what we're going to cover. By the end of this conversation, you'll know how these scams unfold, why seniors are often singled out, the legal realities of what happens when they do occur, and the steps you can take right now to keep yourself safe. But before we move into the first section, I'd like to hear from you. Has anyone ever stopped you in a parking lot with a story that didn't quite add up, or asked you for personal information in a store when it just didn't feel right? Share it in the comments, because your experience could protect someone else from falling into the same trap. I think some people picture a dramatic scene or someone being aggressive, but that is not what happens in real life. What makes these scams so dangerous is how ordinary they look. John, can you walk us through how these scams actually work and why they catch people off guard?
Absolutely. The scams that happen around grocery stores and places like Walmart are clever because they blend perfectly into everyday situations. You are not expecting to be targeted when you are picking up bread, milk, or cereal. That's what gives the scammer the advantage. The first one I want to describe is the parking lot setup. Picture this. You've loaded up your bags, you're a little tired from walking the aisles, and someone approaches you with a friendly face. They tell you their car battery is dead and they need a jump, or maybe they claim they are out of gas and just need a few dollars to get home. For many people raised in a generation where helping a stranger was simply the right thing to do, this sounds like an easy chance to lend a hand. The problem is, that story is almost always a script. While you are listening, they may be looking for a chance to slip their hand into your car or your bag. If you hand over money, they vanish quickly. Sometimes they even work in pairs. One person distracts, the other takes.
And that situation feels so familiar. We have all had people ask for help before, and most of us want to be kind. That makes it hard to tell when it is safe and when it is a scam.
Exactly. And that is the point. It is meant to feel natural. Let me share another variation. Inside the store, you may see someone drop an item right in front of you, or they ask if you can reach something on a high shelf. That feels like a normal interaction, and naturally, most folks want to help. What you don't realize is that while you bend down or stretch up, their partner is taking advantage of the moment. Your wallet may be in your open purse, sitting in the cart, or maybe your phone is on top your groceries. A quick grab and they are gone before you even know what happened. It works because we are caught in a moment of kindness and distraction.
That is hard to hear. I can picture myself in that exact situation and not realizing what was happening. What about the scams that look official? I know you've mentioned before that sometimes people even pretend to be working for Walmart.
Yes, that's another common trick. We call it the fake promotion scam. Someone puts on a vest that looks like it belongs to the store, or they carry a clipboard and act professional. They might say they are doing a Walmart survey or that you have won a prize. To claim it, they tell you they need your name, your address, sometimes even a driver's license number. It feels legitimate because the person looks official and they are inside a familiar store. But what they are really doing is collecting information to use later, either for identity theft or to sell your data to other scammers. Remember this, Nancy, Walmart employees do not stop customers in the aisles to collect personal information like that. If it happens, it is a scam.
That's such an important point. These scams don't come across as scary or intimidating. They come across as polite, ordinary, even helpful. That's why they are so effective. It reminds me of something you said earlier, that prevention is our strongest defense. If we know these scams exist, we can see them for what they are.
That is the key. The scams work because they look like normal life. A conversation in the parking lot, a person asking for help, a store promotion that seems harmless. The moment you see those situations as potential traps, you change the outcome. You start protecting yourself instead of walking blindly into it.
Friends, let me pause here and ask you something. Have you ever been approached in a parking lot or while shopping by someone with a story that seemed genuine, but later on you wondered if it was real? Did you help, or did you walk away? Share that experience with us in the comments. Your story might be exactly what keeps another person from losing money or personal information. And as we move forward, remember that what we are covering is not meant to scare you, but to give you the confidence to spot what is really happening around you.
That's an important reminder, Nancy. Once you know how the scam works, you don't need to live in fear. You just need to stay aware. Think of it like learning to drive defensively. You don't stop driving because there are reckless drivers out there, but you do stay alert and watch for the signs. The same is true here. A simple awareness that these scams exist can be the difference between walking away safely or losing something valuable.
And that is why this first part is so critical. We've just walked through the three main ways scammers operate around grocery stores: the parking lot setup, the distraction inside the store, and the fake promotion. Each one relies on our natural instinct to help, to trust, or to believe what looks official. Now that you understand how they work, we are going to go deeper. In the next section, we are going to talk about why seniors are targeted more often than anyone else. It is a painful truth, but an important one. And once you understand the reasons, you will be even better prepared to protect yourself. So stay with us, because this next part may surprise you and may even change the way you look at these situations from now on. Now, John, in the last part, we really painted the picture of how these scams actually play out in parking lots and inside the aisles. But I think one of the hardest things to hear is that seniors seem to be targeted more than anyone else. Why is that the case? What makes older adults more vulnerable to these kinds of tricks?
That is such an important question, Nancy. Scammers do not just pick victims at random. They are deliberate and strategic. They look for certain qualities, and unfortunately, seniors often fit the profile they want. One of the first reasons is generational kindness. Many of today's seniors grew up in a time when lending a hand to a stranger was expected, not questioned. If someone's car broke down on the side of the road, you stopped to help. If a neighbor needed a little money until payday, you offered it. That type of community spirit is admirable. But scammers twist that kindness against you. They know that if they show need, many seniors will respond with generosity before suspicion.
That makes so much sense, and it really does hurt to hear. It feels like a good quality is being turned into a weakness.
Exactly. And right alongside that is something I hear all the time when I talk with victims. They tell me they did not want to be rude. Politeness is a powerful force. For many seniors, if someone approaches them directly, the instinct is to engage. Even if you feel uncomfortable, there is a pressure to respond. Scammers rely on that politeness. They want you to ignore that little alarm bell in your head that says something is off. Instead, they keep you engaged long enough to get what they want.
So we have kindness and politeness working together in ways that actually leave people exposed. What else makes seniors stand out to scammers?
There is also the financial angle. Scammers know that many seniors carry more cash than younger people. Some prefer to pay with bills rather than cards. Others receive steady income from pensions, Social Security, or retirement savings. That makes them appealing targets. If a scammer is going to put in the effort, they want to focus on someone they think has resources they can take quickly. It does not mean you have done anything wrong by carrying cash. It just means you need to be aware that it can make you a more visible target.
That's eye-opening. I think a lot of us don't realize that the simple habit of carrying a little extra cash can actually put us in a higher risk group.
And then there is one more piece that really keeps this cycle going, and that is embarrassment. Too many seniors who fall for these scams never tell anyone. They feel ashamed, like they should have known better, or they blame themselves for being tricked. That silence gives scammers exactly what they want. If victims do not report what happened, law enforcement does not get the information needed to spot patterns. And if the story is never told, then other people do not get the warning they need. It keeps the door open for the scammer to move on to the next person.
That really does sting. If you are listening right now and you have been scammed, please hear this. It is not your fault. It is the scammer's fault. The more we talk about these situations openly, the less power they have. That is why we are having this conversation.
You are exactly right, Nancy. There should never be shame in being targeted. These are professional con artists. They study behavior, they plan, and they practice. They know exactly how to press the right emotional buttons. Anyone can be taken in, no matter how smart or cautious. The difference is whether you learn from it and whether you share what you experienced so others can avoid it.
Friends, let me bring you into this part of the conversation. Have you ever had a moment where you felt someone took advantage of your kindness or your politeness? Maybe you gave money or shared personal information and later realized it was not a good idea. If you feel comfortable, share your story in the comments. You may not realize it, but that could be the story that stops someone else from losing hundreds of dollars or their personal details to a scammer.
That's exactly the point. Scammers rely on silence. They want you to feel embarrassed. They want you to keep it hidden. When you speak up, you take away their advantage. You make it harder for them to move freely. You build a wall of awareness around yourself and your community.
So what we've uncovered here is a tough but important truth. Seniors are targeted because of traits that are, in themselves, good traits: kindness, politeness, financial stability, and even humility. But when those traits are twisted by someone with bad intentions, they can leave us open to harm. The good news is that once you recognize this, you are already stronger. You can learn to set boundaries, you can learn to say no, and you can talk about your experiences without shame.
And that is the beginning of real protection. Awareness is always the first line of defense. Once you know why you are targeted, you stop taking it personally and you start responding practically. That shift in mindset can be the difference between being a victim and being someone who spots the scam and walks away unharmed.
Stay with us because what comes next is just as important. We have talked about the why. In the next section, we are going to look at the legal side. What actually happens if you are scammed? What do the laws say, and how are seniors protected under the system? You may be surprised by what John is going to share, and it may even change how you think about reporting these crimes. John, in our first two parts, we looked at how these scams actually play out and why seniors are so often singled out. But I think there is another angle people do not always think about, and that is the legal side. A lot of people might assume that these scams are simply rude or dishonest behavior, almost like bad manners in a public place. But that is not really the case, is it?
No, it is not, Nancy. These scams are not just bad manners. They are crimes, plain and simple. When someone distracts you and takes your wallet, that is theft. When someone tricks you into giving money for a fake story, that is fraud. And when they use your personal information later on to open accounts or steal your identity, that is identity theft. Each of those actions carries real legal consequences. The challenge is that most people do not view what happened to them as a crime until long after the fact. They see it as being tricked or duped, but the law calls it something much stronger.
That makes me think a lot of folks might not even report it, because they do not connect what happened with a criminal act.
That is absolutely true. Many victims simply go home embarrassed. They tell themselves they should have known better, so they do not want to go to the police. But the problem is that silence helps the scammer keep working. The law cannot stop someone we do not know about. And here is something very important for our listeners to know. In many states, the penalties for these crimes are even more severe when the victim is a senior citizen. Legislatures recognize that seniors are more vulnerable, so they have written the law to give prosecutors the option of tougher sentences.
So if someone over 60 is scammed, it is not just a theft charge, it might be a higher level crime with more weight in court.
That is exactly right. For example, a simple theft might carry one penalty, but theft against an older adult can be classified as aggravated or enhanced, meaning that jail time and fines are higher. The law is trying to send a message that preying on seniors is not just unacceptable, it is going to carry a bigger price. Now, here is the hard truth. Even with those laws, most scammers are difficult to catch. They operate quickly, often move from place to place, and they do not stick around long enough to face accountability. By the time you realize your wallet is gone, they have already used your cards or sold your information.
That really drives home what you said before, that prevention is the best defense. Once it has happened, even the law may not be able to get your money back or undo the damage.
Yes, prevention is everything. That does not mean you should not report what happened. You absolutely should. Reporting gives law enforcement more data to work with. It allows them to see patterns, to track where and when scams are happening, and to warn the public. But I want everyone listening to be realistic. Recovery is often very limited. Once money is gone or identity is stolen, getting it back can be extremely difficult, sometimes impossible. So the best power you have is to recognize the warning signs early and stop the scam before it takes anything from you.
And that is a powerful message, because sometimes people think, well, I can always call the bank, or I can always sort it out later. But the reality is, once a scammer has what they want, the damage is already unfolding.
That is exactly right. And let me add another point. Even if you do report it, and even if there are stronger laws in place for senior victims, those laws only work if a case can be built. That requires evidence, witnesses, and often video or transaction records. Scammers design their schemes to leave as little trace as possible. So once again, the strongest tool in your hands is not the courtroom. It is your own awareness.
Friends, I want to pause here and ask you directly. Have you ever thought about these scams as crimes, or did you brush them off as something smaller? Have you ever had an experience that you did not report because you felt embarrassed or thought the police could not do much? Share that with us in the comments. Your openness could remind someone else that they do not have to stay silent, and that reporting is not just about you, it is about protecting others too.
And Nancy, you are absolutely right to encourage that. Because even if one person feels embarrassed, their report might be the piece of the puzzle that allows law enforcement to stop a scammer targeting a whole community. It is not just about individual justice, it is about community safety.
So if we pull all of this together, the legal side tells us two things. First, scams are crimes, not just rude behavior. They are serious offenses like theft, fraud, and identity theft. And second, while the law does offer stronger penalties when seniors are targeted, the reality is that prevention is still the most reliable defense.
That is right. Think of the law as a safety net. But think of your awareness as the guardrail at the top of the cliff. You want to stay behind the guardrail, not fall and hope the net catches you. If you learn the signs, if you report what you see, and if you remember that you have every right to walk away from suspicious situations, you are using the law in the best way possible by keeping yourself safe before the scam ever succeeds.
And that sets us up perfectly for where we are going next. Because sometimes the best way to really understand the seriousness of this is to hear real stories of people who have been through it. John, I know you have investigated dozens of these cases over your career. In the next part, we are going to ask you to share some of those stories so that our listeners can hear exactly how these scams unfold in real life. Stay with us because I think those stories will hit home in a way nothing else can. Only about 10% of our listeners are subscribed right now. If this conversation is giving you tools to protect yourself, please take a moment to hit that subscribe button. It helps us reach more seniors and keep more people safe from scams like these. We have covered how these scams unfold and why they often target seniors, and we have even looked at the legal side of things. But I think what really makes it real for people is hearing the stories of others who have actually been caught up in these situations. John, I know you have handled many cases over your career. Could you share a few examples with us that really stand out? Ones that could help our listeners picture just how these scams happen in everyday life.
Of course, Nancy. Sometimes hearing the details of real cases makes the warning come alive. The first story that comes to mind involves a woman who shopped at the same Walmart every week. One month she was approached in the parking lot 3 separate times by the same man, though he told her a different story each time. The first time he said he was out of gas and needed a few dollars to get home. The next time it was that his car battery had died. The third time he said he needed money to buy formula for his baby. Each time he looked desperate and she felt sorry for him, so she handed over cash. It was only when a store employee mentioned that this same man had been seen approaching multiple customers that she realized she had been scammed repeatedly. She lost a significant amount of money, but more than that, she lost trust in her own judgment. That is what hurt her the most.
That really does hit hard, because I can imagine so many of us wanting to help in that exact situation. We tell ourselves that maybe it really is someone in need, and we don't want to turn our backs on them. But hearing that it was the same man 3 times in 1 month makes you see how deliberate it is.
Yes, and that is what people need to understand. These scammers are not one-time offenders. They work a circuit, often coming back again and again until someone catches on. Another case that stands out to me is a couple who were approached inside a Walmart by a man dressed in what looked like an official vest. He carried a clipboard and spoke with authority. He convinced them that Walmart was running a special promotion and that they had qualified for a prize. But to receive it, they needed to purchase special gift cards and register them with him. Believing it was real, they spent hundreds of dollars on cards that turned out to be worthless. They later realized they had fallen into a very common scam, one that uses the appearance of legitimacy to convince people to hand over money.
That one feels especially cruel, because it preys on people's excitement and trust in the store they shop at every week. And I think for seniors, when someone looks official and carries a clipboard, it is natural to believe them.
Exactly. And that is why I tell people to always remember that Walmart or any other large chain does not send employees to approach customers in aisles asking for personal information or money. If you hear that kind of pitch, it is not the store, it is a scammer.
What about cases that involve distraction? I know you have mentioned before that some of these scams rely on a partner working behind the scenes.
Yes. One case I will never forget involved an older gentleman who was shopping alone. While he was in the aisle, someone asked him to grab an item from the top shelf. Being polite, he turned his attention to help. While he was focused upward, another person reached into his cart and took his wallet from an open purse he had set on top of the groceries. He did not even realize it was missing until he reached the checkout. By that time, the thieves were long gone and had already used his cards. That is a perfect example of how quick and subtle these scams can be. A moment of distraction is all it takes.
It is frightening to think about how ordinary that scenario feels. Helping someone grab something from the shelf is something we all do without thinking twice. But now I see how important it is to guard our belongings at all times, even when we are just trying to be kind.
That is the lesson. These scams all rely on trust and distraction. They count on your good nature and your willingness to focus on someone else. Once they have your attention, they move quickly. But knowing these stories makes you more alert. You begin to see situations differently, and that awareness gives you control back.
Friends, let me bring you into the conversation here. Have you ever had something like this happen to you or to someone you know? Maybe you were approached in a parking lot with a sad story, or maybe you were distracted for a moment and realized something was missing. Share your story in the comments. I promise you, your words might be the reason someone else recognizes a scam before it happens to them.
And that is exactly why I share these cases. It is not to scare people, it is to educate. The more these stories are told, the harder it becomes for scammers to succeed. Once the community knows their tricks, their power fades.
So what we can take away from these real-life examples is that the scams may look different on the surface, but underneath they rely on the same strategies. They lean on our instinct to help, our trust in what looks official, and our willingness to give someone the benefit of the doubt. Once we start recognizing those patterns, we are much less likely to fall victim.
That is right, and now that we have walked through the reality of these stories, it is time to turn toward the solutions. Because the truth is, once you know what to watch for, there are very practical steps you can take to protect yourself. In the next part, I want to give clear advice that you can put into practice right away. These are habits that will help you stay safe every time you shop. Whether you are in a big city or a small town,
Stay with us, because the advice John is about to share might be the most important part of this whole series. He is going to give us concrete steps to keep ourselves safe, and I think you will find them simple but powerful. And before we move forward, I would love to hear from you one more time. Has hearing these stories made you think differently about your own routines? Do you feel like you might watch your surroundings more closely the next time you shop? Tell us in the comments, because your reflection might help someone else build better habits too. John, we have spent this whole conversation walking through the ways these scams happen, why seniors are often the ones targeted, and even hearing some powerful real-life stories. But I want us to close with the most important part of all. What can people actually do to protect themselves? Because knowing the problem is only half of it. The real power comes from having a plan.
that is exactly right, Nancy. Awareness is the first step, but action is what keeps you safe. I want to share some practical steps that I believe every listener can use the very next time they go shopping. These are not complicated. They are small habits, but they make all the difference. The first one is to limit what you carry. Too many people still carry their entire wallet or purse with every piece of identification they own. You do not need your social security card on a shopping trip. You do not need 5 or 6 credit cards. Take only what you absolutely need for that trip. If your wallet is ever taken, the less information inside, the less damage the thief can do.
That makes so much sense. I think many of us just get used to keeping everything with us all the time without really questioning it. But what you are saying is that less really is safer.
Exactly. The next step is securing your belongings. If you carry a purse, keep it zipped and keep it close to your body. Do not leave it open in your cart. For men, do not put your wallet in a back pocket where someone can slip it out without you noticing. If you are using a cart, do not set your phone or wallet on top of the groceries. Keep valuables in a pocket or crossbody bag that stays in contact with you. These simple changes eliminate the quick grabs that scammers rely on.
That hits close to home because I have definitely set my purse in the top of the cart while reaching for something. It feels so normal in the moment, but now I see how it gives someone the perfect opportunity.
It does. Another very important habit is practicing saying no. For many people, especially seniors, the hardest part is feeling like you are being rude. But I want to be clear, it is not rude to protect yourself. If someone approaches you with a story or a request, and something does not feel right, you owe them no explanation. A firm no thank you, and walking away is all you need. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Remember, scammers are counting on your politeness to keep you engaged. Breaking that pattern ends their opportunity.
I really love that you are bringing this up. I think for so many of us, saying no feels uncomfortable. But hearing it framed as an act of self-protection makes me feel differently about it. It is not about being unkind. It is about being safe.
That is exactly it. And let me share something specific to Walmart and similar stores. Know their policies. Walmart does not send employees into the aisles to collect your personal information, to run surveys, or to hand out prizes that require you to give private details. If someone asks you for your driver's license number or tries to convince you that you won a gift card, you can safely assume it is a scam. Store employees may greet you, they may help you find an item, but they will not collect sensitive information.
That is such an important reminder. I can see how easily people fall for that one, because the person looks official and is standing inside a store you already trust.
And that is why knowing the store's actual policies protects you. Another habit I encourage is reporting suspicious activity. If someone approaches you in the parking lot or tries to get information from you inside the store, tell management. Report it to local police. Even if you are not sure it was a scam, the information helps build a clearer picture of what is happening in your community. Law enforcement can only act on what is reported.
And I imagine that when one person speaks up, it can protect many others.
Absolutely. Finally, I want to emphasize the importance of educating others. Share what you learn with friends, family, and neighbors. Talk about the scams you see and the habits you are practicing. The more people who know, the fewer victims scammers will find. Knowledge spreads protection. If you protect yourself and also teach someone else, you double the impact.
That is such powerful advice, John, and I really appreciate how each step you shared is simple enough for anyone to follow. Limit what you carry. Secure your belongings. Practice saying no. Know the store policies. Report suspicious behavior. And share what you learn. None of that requires special equipment or a complicated plan. It just takes awareness and the willingness to act.
You are exactly right. The strongest defense is not about being stronger or faster than a scammer. It is about being prepared. When you know what to do, you remove the element of surprise. And once surprise is gone, the scam loses its power.
Friends, I want to pause here and ask you something. Have you ever had to say no in a situation that felt uncomfortable? Did you walk away even though it felt rude? Or maybe you did not and later wished you had? Share those moments in the comments. They are not just stories, they are lessons, and someone else might learn the courage to say no from what you share.
That is a wonderful way to look at it, Nancy. Courage is not about fighting back or confronting the scammer. Courage is about protecting yourself even when it feels awkward. Saying no and walking away takes strength. Reporting what happened takes strength. Sharing your story so others can avoid harm takes strength.
So, as we close this part of the conversation, let me just say again how grateful I am for your clear, practical advice. You have taken something that feels overwhelming and broken it down into steps we can all actually do. That is what makes the difference.
Thank you, Nancy. I truly believe that if even one listener takes these steps to heart, it will prevent a scam from succeeding. And when one scam fails, it protects not only the individual but the community as a whole.
And to everyone listening, remember this. You are not powerless. You have tools, you have strategies, and you have support. If you put these habits into practice, you make yourself a much harder target. And when you share them with others, you multiply that protection across your family, your neighborhood, and even your community. Before we wrap up, I would love to hear from you. Have you ever been in a situation where you spotted a scam before it happened? Did you follow some of these tips already, or are there new ones you are planning to try? Tell us in the comments. We read every single one, And your story could be the encouragement someone else needs to take that extra step of caution. John, today we really walked through something that I think surprised a lot of people. Grocery shopping feels so ordinary, so routine, and yet we uncovered how that routine can be turned into an opportunity for scammers. We saw how they set up in parking lots, how they create distractions inside the aisles, and how they pretend to be official representatives of the very stores we trust. What struck me is how simple each tactic is, and yet how effective it becomes when people are caught off guard.
That is the heart of it. Nancy, scammers thrive in ordinary places because people let their guard down there. But once you learn to see the signs, the power shifts back to you. You begin to recognize when something is out of place, and you act before the scammer gets what they want. Awareness truly is protection. The more people understand these patterns, the harder it becomes for the criminals to succeed.
And that is the encouragement I hope our listeners take away. This is not about living in fear or thinking everyone who approaches you is out to get you. It is about being wise, confident, and prepared. Just like you put on a seatbelt without thinking twice, you can practice these safety habits until they become second nature. That way you can go about your shopping and your daily life with peace of mind.
That is right, and I want to leave everyone with one clear action. If someone approaches you in a parking lot or inside a store asking for money or personal information, you do not owe them anything. You can stop, say no, and walk away. Then report what you saw to store staff or to local authorities. That one decision could protect you and prevent others from being targeted the same way.
And now we want to hear from you. Have you ever experienced something like this while out shopping? Did you recognize it as a scam, or did it take some time before you realized what had happened? Share your story in the comments. We read every single one, and what you share might be exactly what another person needs to hear to avoid falling into the same trap. Until next time, remember you are not alone. You have the tools to protect yourself, and when you spot the signs, you stop the scam. Stay safe, stay aware, and know that you have the power to protect not just yourself but your entire community.